Earlier this year, I made that video talking about how Jackson, Danny, Matt, and I were going to be writing a full-fledged porn production for a very well-known company in the industry. It was going to be a very expensive budget from the company, and it was going to be an episodic release. In total, we made a runtime of something that would go right around like 4 hours, so it was basically the fucking Lord of the Rings of porn. And we created an actual masterpiece. If you took all of the porn out of our porno, it would still be an American classic, like a really fucking great movie. But unfortunately, we did all of that before the pandemic hit and shut everything down, fucked everyone in the ass. So they never actually made our porn series. And I thought it'd just be a real waste to let this sacred script go into obscurity and forgotten, lost to the tides of time. So I thought it'd be fun to at least share some of episode 1 with all of you. I don't want to give away any of the big twists or developments in the universe we've created, because who knows, maybe we shop the script around and it lands a home on Amazon Prime as Rian Johnson's Knives Out sequel. So just in case, to err on the side of caution, I'm only going to share with you like the main points in some of the dialogue so you can see where we were going and what we're setting up, but I'm not going to reveal any of the big shit to you. You're just going to have to sit there and salivate waiting to see if this will ever be finished. So, to break it down in a nutshell, it's called The Fucking at Rock Hard Manor. For what it's worth, I thought that title was way too aggressive. It comes out raw, no rubber right away. I just didn't really like the title of it too much, but that I was overruled by the group, so that's the title, The Fucking at Rock Hard Manor. And it is a murder mystery thriller pants filler. So it's basically just think of Knives Out. I think that's a really good example right away. So as you can likely imagine, the story takes place in Rock Hard Manor, where Shock Rockhard has called together his closest friends and business partners to celebrate the creation of the Good Sensation Mark I. The Good Sensation Mark I device was created by none other than the esteemed inventor Dr. Zachariah Good Sensation. The Good Sensation Mark I is basically a ray gun that cures PTSD. Well, actually, think of it less of a ray gun and more like the microwave emitter from Batman Begins that fucking vaporizes all the water in Gotham. It's that, but it cures PTSD. Now, if I may, I'd like to read you some dialogue from Dr. Zachariah Good Sensation. This is when he's trying to flirt with some of the women attending this celebration. This is unlike anything you've ever seen before, I guarantee it. You don't understand. How could you, though? It's utterly ridiculous to think you could. I myself have been trapped in my lab for 3 years trying to understand it, held hostage by my own hubris, crafted from the finest polymers I could get my hands on thanks to Shock's financing. Ah, yes, such a delicate balance of madness and genius. You know, girls, if I had made even one miscalculation in the creation of this, I may have very well lost my life. And as you can likely imagine, the women were beyond impressed, sought in panties immediately. However, not too long after this interaction, something goes awry, as is standard in murder mysteries. So Shock Rock Hard is making an announcement, thanking everyone for being there to celebrate this, because he's very happy. Shock Rock Hard, as you well know, he's one of the most decorated veterans in the entire history of the American Armed Forces, and he unfortunately suffers from PTSD, so he had Dr. Zacharias, Good Sensation, working on a device to help alleviate his troubles, as well as his other comrades. Shock Rockhard and his wife Tootie Rockhard are at the top of their staircase making this announcement when they ask all the attendees to raise their glass in a toast. However, the lights turn off. A loud, euphoric moan is heard, followed by the sound of a body tumbling down the stairs. It sounds like 10 wet potatoes all getting pushed down a staircase at once. The lights turn back on, and everyone horrified as they see Shock Rockhard's lifeless body at the base of the staircase. Who could have murdered Shock Rockhard? He had no enemies. He was loved by all. The lights were only off for a matter of seconds, and there's no visible wounds on Shock Rockhard's body, other than, of course, a couple of bruises and scrapes from tumbling down the stairs, but not enough to kill a man, and they happened after the moan. A very interesting and peculiar death. Madame Tootie Rockhard goes to check for a pulse. She realizes there's no pulse. He is pronounced dead at the scene. Then, as everyone is grieving, mourning, the doors kick in. They fly open, and smoke pours in, flooding the foyer. A shadowy figure moves through the smoke, and loud gasps and even a scream are heard from the general vicinity of the audience. And as the smoke clears, a grizzled detective emerges. It's Detective Mike Mitchell. Now, before I get into Mike Mitchell, I'd like to tell you where that name comes from. Mike Mitchell is the name of a character a buddy of mine played in a really low-budget piece of shit movie. He played a character named Detective Mike Mitchell, so I thought it'd be really cool just kind of to put him in here as an homage to that and keep that legacy of Mike Mitchell alive. So Detective Mike Mitchell comes in, and he immediately takes control of the scene. Mike Mitchell says, "No need to scream, ladies and gentlemen. I've heard it all before." He takes one last puff from his cigar before flicking it off to the side. Mike Mitchell slowly approaches the scene. Madame Tootie Rockhart is still face down on Shock's chest. Mike Mitchell extends his condolences. "You must be the wife of the deceased. You have my sincerest condolences, madame, but right now, you're in my crime scene." Tootie Rockhart replies, "Crime scene? What do you mean?" Mike Mitchell, "It's quite simple, really. I could see it immediately. A fall from such a height would not have killed anyone, but the evidence is on his face. A smile. Why? If he had truly died from falling, there would be no smile. No. He was already dead, madame." It would be at this point the audience is made more aware of Shock Rockhart's face, and they see the biggest smile they've ever... It's at this point the audience gets a very clear view of Shock's face. There is a massive smile on it that looks like a kid on Christmas Day, smiling from ear to ear, looking like a 9-year-old boy that just went to Disney World for the first time. Magic in his eyes, little stars in his eyes. He looks like the happiest motherfucker on the entire goddamn planet. But now that's a bit interesting, isn't it? You see, most people at the Rockhart Manor that night assume that he slipped and fell when the lights went off, but if that was the case, why would he be smiling? There'd be panic washing over his face, not a big smile. So it's a very interesting conundrum Mike Mitchell is faced with, a very difficult case he's going to have to crack. Detective Mike Mitchell then arrives at the natural conclusion that this had to have been a murder. The audience then gets to hear the thoughts of Detective Mike Mitchell, one of the greatest minds in all of detective history, putting Sherlock Holmes and L from Death Note to shame. Mike Mitchell thinks to himself, "No signs of distress, and no signs of a struggle apart from the one with gravity. The smile on his face. Why? What happiness can be found in death? A minor abrasion on his L4, no doubt from the tumble down the stairs, but from my time in chiropractic school, I know there's no way that was fatal. Though the stairs are made of oak, the strongest wood available on the free market. Why oak?" Mike Mitchell immediately looks up to those kneeling around him, observing him. They seem to be waiting on his every word. Mike notices this and immediately shouts, "Someone fetch me the blueprints for this house right now." The audience confusedly looks around at each other before Dr. Zachariah Good Sensation scratches his neck nervously. Yes, Detective Mike Mitchell, right away," says Dr. Zachariah. Dr. Zachariah Good Sensation then rushes away from the crowd, and Detective Mike Mitchell returns his head towards the body of Shock Rockhart. He puts his ear to the deceased man's stomach, and the voiceover returns. His thorax is nearly shattered and his lips chapped. Circumstantial, possibly, but definitely indicative. But of what? I won't read all of the dialogue here, but Detective Mike Mitchell continues to thoroughly analyze the corpse before he begins to turn his attention to something else he noticed upon this inspection. Dear God, what is that smell? Detective Mike Mitchell then quickly stands up in disgust and covers his nose with his hand. But then he screams as he realizes his hand is covered in semen. Good Lord! It's clear to me now, everyone. This man is not only dead, but he has ejaculated as well. The crowd gasps in shock, and Tootie Rockhart is heard wailing even louder now. Mike Mitchell inspects his hand and starts to try and shake the cum off. Alessandra, the maid, walks up to Mike and wipes his hand with a paper towel. Thanks, hon. Glad you were here to get me out of that sticky situation. As you'll soon learn, Mike Mitchell is a wisecracking one-liner straight out of an old 80s movie. The maid giggles and rushes away to dispose of the paper towel. Mike Mitchell turns to face the crowd. They're all talking amongst themselves and turn their attention back to Mike to give their entire focus. So what's next, detective? If what you say is true and Daddy was indeed murdered, then one of us is at fault here. This was said by his daughter Vanessa Rockhart. Everyone looks uncomfortably at each other. Some individuals move apart and some awkwardly scratch their necks and take calculated sips from their champagne flutes. Detective Mike Mitchell then says that everyone needs to split up and look for clues. I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and I've brushed over a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the other context, building all this up with the other characters. I just wanted to give you like the very core elements that happen to set up the events of the fucking at Rockhard Manor. So yeah, why was Shock Rockhard smiling upon his death, and why was he filled with so much cum in his trousers, so much so that it was leaking out into the hand of Detective Mike Mitchell? It truly is one of the best mysteries to ever be posed in fiction. And yeah, that's really about it. Just wanted to share a little from the porn script here. I know there was no sex at all in any of this right here, because that was like the hardest part for us to write, was putting sex in this story. We just focused on like the whole mystery narrative and coming up with good twists and turns and like an actual good world building, and putting sex in it was actually pretty difficult. So we did manage to fit it all in there in ways that make sense, but the main thing here is you will be watching this porn for the plot, because the narrative is a fucking banger if it ever does get made, which I'm doubtful that it ever will now at this point. But either way, just wanted to share this with you. That's about it. So yeah.